Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's OSTrails webinar titled Rethinking How to Evaluate DMPs, and this is specifically for the founders. This is the Founders Edition. I am Tassos Stavropoulos from OpenAir, and I will be moderating today's session. This webinar is part of the OSTrails webinar series on machine-actionable DMP evaluation, where we explore how data management plans can better support research planning, implementation, and assessment. Today's session, as I mentioned before, is dedicated to founders. We will look at the Horizon Europe DMP template and present our framework for semi-automated structured evaluation of DMPs. We will also joined by the Tier 2 project, which is working to enhance reproducibility in data management plans. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our today's speaker, which is Eli Papadopoulou from Athena Research Center, which is also Deputy Project Coordinator of OSTrails. And Eli will introduce the DMP Evaluation Framework and will walk us through how it works, how can better support DMP review process and template development. Finally, following the presentation, we will go to have a Q&A and a short interactive section where we can discuss your questions and to have any comments and so on. In the meantime, you can share your questions, comments and so on in the chat, and we will collect them and try to address all of them during the Q&A session. With this, I would like to welcome Eli, and Eli, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tassos, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining. Very nice to see many new faces. And yeah, let's start. Usually, it's lunchtime. Hopefully, you had time to have lunch. Otherwise, well, grab it because you will need energy for this webinar. Okay. Let me share my screen. Let me also put it. Oh, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Which one? Because I have to.
the right
presentation. Yeah.
Good. Right. So, as Tassos already mentioned, we are initiating this series of webinars in the context of the OSTrails project, which is about creating pathways between services and in different stages of the research. In this particular edition of our webinar, the Funders Edition, where we look at the funders' perspective on the DMPs and the evaluation of the DMPs, we are also collaborating with Tier 2 project, which enhances reproducibility, to see how we can better support reproducibility in the DMPs. My name is Eli Papadopoulou from Athena Research Center. Sometimes you will find me also doing things for OpenAir, as today, as is one of my roles in the project. OpenAir is the coordinator of OSTrails, but I am the deputy coordinator of the project. Our agenda. We'll start with what its project does around reproducibility. So about the data management plan. So what's their focus? We'll see how DMP evaluation is today and how it could be. Our implementation plan in OSTrails, a use case of the Horizon Europe pilot, which is a pilot that we are currently runs in OSTrails. And we'll see also, we'll look at the maDMP evaluation survey, the one that you received along with the, let me admit some people. The one that we received, that you've received along with this invitation for the webinar. And we'll have a discussion. But first, I didn't prepare a Menti because I wanted, maybe I can stop sharing, because I wanted to ask you some questions. You can raise your hand or, open your cameras or write in the chat. So please choose your preferred way of answering. And first question is, or unmute actually. First question is, which country and or organization are you joining from or representing? This, I think it's easier to write. So maybe if you can write in the chat. Okay, we see Romania, Czechia, Latvia, Finland, France, Lithuania, whoa, Lithuania, Spain, Croatia, Germany, Slovenia, Portugal, Turkey, Belgium, awesome, Netherlands, awesome, awesome. So we have a variety of regional, let's say, regional players in the research data management. That's good. Now, sorry. Now, do you have currently a DMP template where you are in your affiliated organization? You can raise your hand so that we can see that. Or open your camera. It's up to you. Great. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 plus 1, 9. We are 1/5, I guess, so far. Right. Awesome. Thank you. Now, last question, and then I proceed with the presentation as I promised. Do you have any questions that you would like to be answered regarding the survey? Again, open the camera or raise your hand. We saw already some that came in the email. So thank you for emailing us about it. Okay, good. Then, yeah, Nicole. Okay,
Yeah, so hi. I had a question that I sent through email, so maybe you had the opportunity to see it already, but I wasn't sure. I'm gonna ask it here in case someone else has the same question. I wasn't sure if the answers are about how we are already evaluating those dimensions, or if it's something that we would like to have assessed and evaluated in
Yes.
In this way.
Yes, it's a very good point, the one you raised. I will, and thank you. We had time to read your email. Let's keep this for the discussion. So
okay, sure.
It's good. Yeah, it's good to be able to clarify a few things about the survey for sure. Again, let me share my screen. Oops. And let's get back to the presentation. Now, tier 2. It's one of the Widera projects with 10 partners led by No Center in Austria. And one of the main things that it does is boosting reproducibility. So it does so by engaging with the communities in different domains, creating interventions, policy interventions, and tools, enhancing already existing tools to support different elements of reproducibility to, at the end, increase the trust and the quality of the results, the trust to the research and the quality of the results. So what I want you to remember is tier 2 is about reproducibility. And in tier 2, one of the pilots, so one of the use cases that we are testing some of the reproducibility results is this one, is the reproducibility management plan. It's not something new, it's just us taking the data management plan concept and identifying how and if there are reproducibility elements covered in the templates already, and just at the end creating a prototype that enhances current templates, DMP templates, with the reproducibility questions. And we also try to do that for specific domains, so give this domain flavor to the RMP, the reproducibility management plan. Now, OSTrails. OSTrails is a Horizon Europe project, and it is an infra-EOSC project, which means that it designs and develops solutions for the EOSC that is currently in development. And the things that OSTrails does in the EOSC sphere, let's say, is creating interconnections between tools so that they can easily exchange information when we're using different tools in different stages of the research lifecycle, specifically from the planning stage to the publishing and assessment stage. We are 40. That didn't work. We're 40 partners coming from different sectors: the public sector, the academic sector, the private sector. Yes, non-profit. So we have a good variety of backgrounds, let's say, that help us co-define what the solutions that we are delivering at the end, but also test them in different settings. So again, what I want you to remember from the OSTrails, it is all about interoperability and actionability. And the framework, the main framework that OSTrails works on is the PTA framework, the abbreviation of Plan, Track, Assess. So for that, we onboard our members, bring more than 80 tools that enable or support these three key, can you see my cursor? These key three stages: planning, tracking, assessing. For planning, we bring DMP platforms to support us in creating DMPs that are not only PDFs, but also they have all this metadata that we need so that they can become machine actionable at the end, so that they can perform some actions like that can help us in administrative minimizing the administrative burden, for example. Another thing is tracking. So during tracking, our partners bring scientific knowledge graphs. OpenERA graph is there, along with the research infrastructures from the 5 clusters, bring their own graphs, and we see how they can be enhanced and how this information flows also to the DMPs and can be validated, and quality is, increased. And at the end, for the assessment, we are working with tools. So our partners again bring these tools that support fair assessments, like the Fair Champion, like Fair Validator, FOOPS, Fair OS, and we try to harmonize again things so that when we go to all of these tools and we present the same data set and we apply the same metrics and the same tests, we get the same results. But let's focus on the planning, which is the one that this webinar is about. Let's see how the machine-actionable DMP or the DMP, the PDF, can be evaluated. First of all, our starting point, the foundation of all, Science Europe tools. That has been a huge support, help to the community, because we could easily have standardized templates that we could reuse and adapt to our context. We could do the same for the different disciplines that we represent with the domain data protocols that are essentially DMPs for a specific domain, right? And also in terms of assessment, we see the DMP rubric. It gives good guidance for reviewers. And although it's not part of the assessment, however, their Science Europe also gave us some criteria for the selection of trustworthy repositories. Is it enough? It's definitely very good to start from nothing, right? Because it gives us structure not only to reviewers but also to researchers. We see that it's widely adopted across Europe, so that means that since the uptake is strong, that means that it works, right? It promotes fair and ethical practice, of course, that's also behind it. And it gives helpful guidance to researchers. However, what it doesn't do is provide the necessary tools for putting these templates into let's say a structure that machines can understand also. So it's structured for us, but let's say not for machines. And that prevents us from having automations, for example. So we have these kinds of limitations. We see that there is not one size fits all, of course. And domains, although they are, we have the domain data protocols, we have examples, we have the framework. This is not happening, at least not as widely. It's not as widely adopted as the standard, the core requirements for DMPs. And also the same for the rubric. The rubric does not contain domain-specific examples, so we know what is good and what is not. Focuses on the narrative completeness, of course, not on traceability, and cannot distinguish between active and final DMPs. So everything is in one. And of course, this is to support the concept of the living document, right? Because this is something that is evolving. However, it's still unclear to researchers how they are evaluated during research, month 6, let's say, as opposed to at the end. And we see that at least 8 out of 50 national pilots have already adopted, our national pilots, we have many in the project, have adopted the Science Europe DMP, and I'm pretty sure more are going to do that as we continue our work in OSTrails, even at the institutional level, not only at the national level. Now, how can we enhance this? It's taking this foundation? Well, the good news is that we now have a model. We have modeled the DMP, and this is what you see at the moment from. This is an output of the Risk Data Alliance work that we have done. And you can see what entities and what information the DMP has if it's shared in a machine actionable way in a JSON, for example, as opposed to a PDF. So what it supports us with, how it enhances our work is taking this standard as a basis. We can now see the opportunities that it brings to semi-automating the evaluation or even other activities that have to do with data management. Few things that it does extra is the dimensions are not only for completeness, but go beyond that to check the feasibility, to check the fairness of the data sets, the openness and the compliance with policies, and so on. The service that we are working on, the maDMP evaluation service, can be applied across the DSM+ and DMP stages. The evaluation is linked to the data lifecycle and project context. It enables semi-automated review, and it's designed to support funders and reviewers in real time. What does that look like, though? This is what it happens today, right? The researcher uses a software, DMP software, produces the PDF, and then this goes for review to the funding agency. Now, in OSTrails, we have the framework that I referenced before, the PTA framework, which shows which includes the DMP tool in the life cycle, in the plan, track, assess life cycle stages, so it can exchange information, it can inform other tools, and it can get informed by other tools, like from the scientific knowledge graph, from a fair evaluator, from a repository. It can infuse, let's say, its DMPs with more information, with more metadata that can then be used to support evaluation at different levels, not only completeness of the content, but fairness of the data sets. And this is how this will look like at the end. The researcher uses the DMP software, which has a maDMP, which exports the DMP both in PDF, which is the human-readable version, but also in the JSON version, which is the machine-readable version. That is then evaluated with the software, and then it goes to the reviewer. So both the DMP PDF and the maDMP plus the evaluation assessment, the evaluation report goes to the reviewer. Now, what is our plan in OSTrails to do that? 3 key categories. Although I mentioned it's an infra EOS project, so it's highly technical, we shouldn't neglect the conceptual part. And we know from different studies that we can share later. When we share it with you, the presentation, we can add it in the useful links. But we know that there are some difficulties, some challenges currently with how researchers use DMPs or complete DMPs. So we try to listen to this, to all the stakeholders involved in data management planning, and try to rethink how DMPs could look like, as our webinar title says. So we work on the concepts, on the templates, and the evaluation framework. These are two concepts that we are working on. And in parallel, we are working on the technical specifications that we need to allow us to exchange this information, to have these automations that we want, and so on. And we operationalize all this through the platforms that we have in OSTrails. We have Argos, which is openers, DSW from Elixir, DAMAP from Austria, DMP Tuli from Finland, and we have more. So we bring all the key software providers for DMP to harmonize things. And at the end, we also design a DMP evaluation service. And all these are consumed and consumed by the pilots, but pilots also bring feedback and input to our work. So it's a two-way it's a two-way communication. Now, a little bit about each of these three, let's say, key areas that we're working on. DMP concepts, template. We are currently working with Horizon Europe because this is the first pilot that we have a deliverable for, not because of anything else, which we try to define the structure and the content of the DMP, of course. And for the evaluation framework, we try to see how this looks like, what the criteria are that we need for DMPs to be evaluated, quality, completeness, fairness, and other things that you show in the survey. For the technical specifications, I included them because there was one answer in the one of the answers that we have already received in the survey. They wanted to understand how this can be become real, how this can work in real life, how this is feasible and possible. So we have those tools. We have an interoperability framework where we know with different we have the tools to exchange information for the services to can talk to each other. We have the common standard that supports all this. And we have also the maDMP API, which sets the specifications for exchanging the protocols for exchanging this information. And the platforms are working together to support the technical specifications and also the concepts that we bring, both at the planning for the DMP planning tools, but also for the DMP evaluation service that is one part, it's one component of the data management planning services. And we have 24 pilots where we work with to validate these results, as I mentioned, and align across contexts. Now, let's see how this looks like in the Horizon Europe pilot. Again, this is a pilot. It's not a collaboration with European Commission. I want to prevent misunderstandings. It's just us trying to see how the PTA framework works or could work at scale for the European Commission, which is a very big funder. And yeah, it's more international, let's say, than national. And utilize the scientific knowledge graphs, the DMP platforms, and the fair assessment tools to do that. Our aim is to improve the template, the current template, looking also at the upcoming Framework Program 10, implement this DMP template as a modular machine actionable template in the tools, and co-define the indicators that can support the DMP's evaluation. At the end, we will have the template, as I mentioned, and one template with one machine actionable template, so it can do all the things that we shared before, the previous slides, and also an integration with the EC portal, or at least we'll see how this will look like, and if we can at the end push it through. And this is like a visual representation of what I shared. We have the opener graph, which gets information from different services. So you can find there the maDMPs, so the reach version of the DMPs, because with all the metadata that we need, we can also find the maDMP evaluation result or other test results like fair assessment results of datasets, all linked together, and then this can become part of the EC portal. And that's because we have Opener has a strong collaboration with the European Commission to support the portal, to support the findings of the portal. So we will try at the conceptual level to see how the PTA framework can support it. But going a bit further, what does that look like in practice? Our goal is machine actionable DMPs, right? The expectation is that this can be done with a nice structured template for the DMPs. So if we add a template to a DMP platform, then we're good. But the reality is that this is not enough. We have the DMP template, yes, but there's a number of steps that we need to take. One of them, for example, is the one that we are taking today, where we're coming to you and we want your input, your feedback on our work, so that we can create a more representative, a more truthful, let's say, solution at the end, which your input will then bring to the technical team. So we'll see how we need to, what we need to do at the technical level to support some of the elements that you are bringing to the table. Now, is one template enough? This is one of the questions we are having at the moment, because in the Horizon Europe pilot, let me admit, okay. Because we have a consortium, right? So this is a funded, research-funded project. We have the consortium coming from different countries, different organizations. They have the Horizon Europe DMP template, and they write a DMP. But in reality, partner A from 40 that you saw, for example, today, partner A brings or uses a research infrastructure, for example, to get the data from an instrument, or use to get the data from an instrument to analyze them. So they use all the tools and services that an infrastructure like Clarin, for example, like Panosk bring, which means that they need to follow the DMP template of this infrastructure because there is also a policy behind this infrastructure for how things are stored, for example, how things are processed or shared. And that means that at the end, the RDM practices, not so from planning to practice, so when we go to practice data management, we see that they're using the research infrastructure services to produce dataset 1 and 2, let's say. The same happens for partner B, let's say, and they come from Athena Research Center, for example. We have our own template and we have our own maybe national also rules in Greece. And this is reflected in the tools and the practices that we are performing for producing the dataset 3, which will become part of the Horizon Europe DMP. And here, I forgot to update the slide, sorry about that. But maybe we can have where partner A is, maybe partner C is, because they use the same research infrastructure. So for this dataset, there might be more than one partners, right? Same for this one, if we have 2 departments from an institution. But if there's someone that is coming and has an organization that has no policy, then there is, or should they be, all these are questions, a consortium level declaration that they can follow for the RDM practices to produce dataset 4, 5, 6. And this is all at the end, the Horizon Europe DMP. So our approach is two-phased, is not two-phased, two-layered. We want to separate the declaration part of the DMP from the implementation, because we see some differences. The declaration part can have a consortium, can include the consortium level intentions, like, for example, that something that applies to all, but the licenses of our deliverables, let's say, or papers will be CC BY. This will apply to all, and the exceptions, of course, that apply again to all. But we also need to take into consideration the community or institutional level intentions. These brought by our organizations, if there are any, right? If there are these declarations in place. And during implementation, we again follow the practices and produce the outputs. And we want to actually, yeah, sorry about that. We want to divide the practices from the outputs, and not as it is today, because we see that we go beyond data management at the moment. We see software management plans, even the Horizon Europe DMP template asks for more than data, software, workflows, methods, and it's up to us to write how this can be fair, how fair practice apply to them. So we see that DMPs is more than the data. And we want to separate the active part of the data management from the final part of the data management, from the output, the actual outputs that, for example, support ABC publications. And this gives us the flexibility of assessing these outputs for fairness, check how fair they are at the end, because it's good to know when you start so that you follow the best practices. But at the end, if funders policy, for example, says for data sets, okay, then we can understand which outputs have been produced and how fair they are. About the survey. And okay, we have time. Let's see how this how all this framework and all this is brought in the survey. The survey takes into, and please scan to get the link if you don't have it already. The survey, again, it's about funders' perspective. So only funders, we invite only funders to respond. And that's not because we're not inclusive, but because we have other plans for other stakeholders. We have actually equal plans for stakeholders that are coming. Our scope is to understand the funder practices for reviewing DMPs, to see their evaluation needs and validate what we already propose. So again, this two-way communication with each other will really help put this framework at the end into practice in the OSTrails project from the pilots also. Capture expectations for automation and gather feedback, of course. And please don't forget that the deadline is end of this month. You will see in the survey, we're talking about dimensions. What is a dimension? Dimension is a key aspect of a good DMP. Dimension can be completeness, because at the end, I want this DMP to be complete. And that means X, Y, Z. For example, that all required fields are filled in the template. Can be fairness. That means the DMP is good, it's complete, it's fair, it includes fair data sets, for example. So these are all dimensions, and the metrics are how that dimension is assessed, how we're going to do it, what we're going to check to get a valid result. And this is another way of showing you how this looks like with the fair DMP output metric that checks if the DMP itself is shared and deposited in the repository with a license and a PID, so the DMP itself. The dimension is fairness, so this goes under fairness. The broader, let's say, scope is to see how fair we are. And these are the tests that we can do and we can run in the tools to get an evaluation. Now, the key dimensions that we have identified in the version 1, in this version that we have shared with you and you will find in the survey, are the following. Completeness. See, we want to check if everything is complete and comprehensive in the DMP, right? There's nothing missing. RDM coverage, there's data management coverage. We want to understand if all the life cycles or some of the life cycles were covered, the different roles that different people had, professionals and researchers had in the different stage, and the different types of outputs that we got from the different life cycle stages. Fairness, we want to understand, of course, if the outputs are fair, but also if the DMP itself is fair, and also if the repository that we're using enables fairness. Openness, open licenses, open best practices overall. Do we follow open protocols? So just a dimension to understand how open, let's say, our outputs or our practices are. Feasibility, to understand how realistic it is. For example, to deposit a data set of 100 terabytes to a repository that maybe does not have this capacity, right? Policy, to confirm the different policies that have been applied and are part of the broader funding organizations template, like the one we shared before in the previous slides. And this is compliance is just the compliance with the standard, so that we know that at the end we can have a machine actionable data management plan that is complete and doesn't lack in any way. This will look like this. So we will have the DMP in the maDMP version, which has more metadata in, rather than the PDF version, which has only discoverable metadata. So the PDF is good for discoverability, but not for what we are discussing today. And when we apply this framework, we will have, for example, 6 metrics for the FAIR, 2 metrics for feasibility, 1 metric for completeness, and all this at the end will be a result that we get from the DMP evaluation, both human and machine readable. We ran the survey within our consortium in the General Assembly that we had earlier this year. And here are the 15 top metrics that you can find. As you can see, reproducibility is there, content completeness, life cycle, and more technical implementation stuff. So all the dimensions are included, but metrics are prioritized within these dimensions that I shared before. Our preliminary findings. In Tier 2, we work with the Science Europe template to see how we work with the community. So we took the Science Europe template and we assessed, or, we tried to understand and identify if there are enough prompts for reproducibility there. For example, we see a need for negative results or for post-project responsibilities, and these are all nice to have to achieve reproducibility. And for the Horizon Europe pilot in OSTrails, we see that it lacks of clear lifecycle phases, so that we distinguish between data collection, data preservation, data analysis, and so on. We're missing clear guidance on how to describe software and other research products. We see no mention of unused data, so data sets that were not used and why. And no scoring or feedback system. So this is also another limitation. Coming soon, in August probably is a more realistic timeline. We will have a version of all of the different activities that are around the machine actionable DMPs and their evaluation in the OSTrails policy brief, the first policy brief that we have as a project. It will focus on the content of the assessment and the technical specifications. So in the framework that we shared conceptually, technically, and operationally. And in September, October, so after the US Fair, we will have a next webinar on maDMP evaluation, focusing this time on a different target audience. So we would like the perspectives of research performing organizations, librarians, and data stewards that are employed and support research in them. And with that, I would like to open the discussion. Let me stop sharing. Yep.
Thank you very much for your insightful presentation. And yes, let's start with, if you have any questions, comments, you can directly, open your cameras or raise your hands.
Maybe we can start with Nicola.
Yes.
Okay, let me find the email again. Because that was very good points, and
Also,
apologies. Okay.
I took note, and the question was, the answers are about how we are already evaluating these dimensions, or it is something that we want to be evaluated differently.
Yes, the second. It's what we would like to see in the evaluation. Because what happens, we know pretty much. But yeah, let's think of the future. And there was another thing.
Let me check. There were some questions.
If there was another follow-up, you say in the email. Yeah, we'll have a couple of activities. So we will probably be reaching out to you later when we have the input from other stakeholders. So yeah, the answer is we will have some follow-ups for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
Yeah,
A question, yes. How to address the need to deposit the data in trusted repositories with the idea of the data spaces? That was, a question included in the registration form.
Well, we cannot dictate that. I mean, how to address the need to deposit the data in trusted repositories with the idea of data spaces? Data spaces, what is it? First of all, no, I know, but it's not something tangible at the moment. So it's, as you say, an idea more than it's something tangible. So how to address the need to deposit with the idea of a data space? And data repositories actually could become part of a data space, right? If we think of EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, as the open science data space, open science innovation, I don't remember exactly how it's called, then trusted repositories are part of it, right? So I would say just wait a bit for some of these concepts to mature and starting to see their uptake. Yeah, I don't know if this answers. I don't know who asked the question, but hopefully this will answer. Have I answered the question? Probably.
Okay. Yeah, probably yes. So I do have some questions, so I can, first of all, you mentioned previously. There is here, Nicola, please. Yes.
No, but please go ahead. I mean, I can jump in after.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a question regarding the work regarding how we're going to define the dimensions and the metrics, And my question is that is the a relationship one-to-one between the metrics and the dimensions, or there are some metrics that can apply to different dimensions? How are you going to address this? Because as far as I can understand, the issue about dimensions is something that we are trying to define at the conceptual level, and then to have something very specifically to measure. So, for example, I would say that might, apply in the case of when we are trying to define metrics for fairness and for openness.
Yes, some metrics, it's true that they might be shared across dimensions, but the dimension looks at different aspects of things. So fairness, as you say, looks at the fair aspects, not about legal stuff or about things that open access brings. So might be shared some metrics, but the dimension is essentially what is our goal? What do we want to see at the end? We want to see from the DMP that there at the end it produced fair data sets that it had applied best practices in the research data management lifecycle, that it's complete based on what we define as complete each time. So these kinds of things are the dimensions.
Okay, thank you. Nicola?
Yes, so thank you for the presentation. And looking at all this, I was wondering like how far is OSTrails to implement this pipeline for DMP evaluation and to implement those recommendations? Because I heard several times that you were saying that you had the tools that were accessible or that some connections were happening, but I was wondering how is all this actually now getting connected together to have a pipeline or?
Yeah, thank you for this. This gives me the opportunity to say that at the moment that we speak, today and yesterday, we ran a hackathon with all these tools for fair assessment and for scientific knowledge graphs to progress some of the technical work, right? To harmonize more our efforts and bring this harmonization to our tools, to implement them, to align within our tools. So yesterday, my colleague Andres from TU Wien, who is there at the moment, shared a demo of the prototype from the DMP service that we are working on with the dimensions that you saw here and some of the metrics that we were able to identify. So currently we have a prototype. It's not fully available yet because we would like to finalize the dimensions and finalize the evaluation, what this evaluation means to funders, to institutions, to researchers, and so on.
Okay, so, very nice. I will follow this closely.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
However, if I may say, the DMP evaluation service as an operational service will be available month 30, so next year. So in a year from now, pretty much. Completely. I mean, complete, not the
Okay.
beta version that we have today.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions? Comments? This is your time. If you didn't have already participate in this survey, to provide directly and discuss concerns about your specific requirements. So that they want to improve the knowledge. Yeah, this is a very general question. Yes, how to improve their knowledge on research data management. So yes, you can follow the training library. We will have collected different resources. I see that there is a raised hand from Eva. Eva, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. I just wanted to
Eva.
raise the comment from some expertise using the DMP. So sometimes having complete DMP, it's very different if it's done by hand and using software. So we have very good experience when the researchers are using softwares, because then it's more understood what are the questions about the research data, especially at the beginning when it's something new, like in the Czech Republic. So it was very helpful because sometimes we had all answer, but the answer weren't correct, like completeness. So our role was also to provide some feedback to researcher how they could improve the research DMP, and that's why we recommended to use the software, because we really found very helpful for the outputs after that.
Thank you so much, Eva. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good to hear more like use cases. Nicola?
Yeah, I still have a few questions. So you were mentioning that you were like using scientific knowledge graphs. Are there several, or you're mainly using the open air graph?
We have several. The open graph is the open scholarly communication. It's the most complete at the moment in terms of scholarly communication.
Okay.
But we also have scientific knowledge graphs that are coming from the research infrastructure. So taking, as their within their context and the data that they produce and the practice they produce, this knowledge to be more, let's say, structured through a graph. So we are working together to also
centralize or...
also increase information that each one has.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned so your study about how difficult it was perceived by researchers or research performing organizations to complete a DMP, and it's super interesting. And if you can share this afterwards, you said that would be great.
There was this study done by our colleague from University of Vienna when the Horizon 2020 program finished. We wanted to understand how the beneficiaries, what are the perspectives in terms of data management. So this is I added in the chat,
okay, thanks.
the study. And we aim to, so the same colleague, because he's part of our consortium, is going to work for the same study for the Horizon Europe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologies if this was addressed earlier. There was a question from Rasmus, but how is the fair evaluation intended to work? Does it build on prior work on fair evaluators?
Yes, so thanks. Also a good question. We bring big fair evaluators, fair assessment tools in the project. So let me show you. I think my colleagues have already shared in the chat, but let me also find it here. We worked to create it. There was no model for fair assessment tools to follow, let's say. There was no structured or no standardized, approach of how to present the results, for example. And I don't say this visually or human readable, but in a human actionable, machine actionable way. So we worked, where is that? Okay. Actually, I have included that in our presentation. No, I haven't. So we work on a model, fairness reference model, to do exactly that. And we are going to use the results from this work in the DMP evaluation service. So our let me share my screen. Let me share my screen so that I show you what I mean. Oops. Okay. Here you can find some useful resources, but it's not the one that I'm referring to for fairness. If we go back here, though, oops. Okay, if we go back here, we see that the fair evaluator, so one of the many that we have in the project, right? And you can check which are in our website, on our website. They get the record from the repository, they evaluate it, and then we get it in the DMP from an integration with a fair evaluator. So the standardized result we also get. in the DMP evaluation. Does that answer your question? If you're interested in FAIR, we will have more webinars in the future because we're doing a lot of things.
Yeah, thank you. It's just very interesting, and I'd love to see more when that comes out.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question.
Maybe if I can ask, since I don't see any other questions, do you think that these dimensions are enough? Are we missing something? How do you find a framework and this work in particular for the maDMP evaluation? Is it something that you see yourselves adopting or testing? If it's not you, then maybe our colleagues from the pilots will for sure have something to share with you. Yeah, we'll continue. We'll stay in touch. I know that this is very preliminary. You would like to see more on that, and we will do that later in the year. Okay, with that, maybe I can share my screen again. Do we have more questions?
I do have a question. I do have two questions. So the one is regarding the evaluation process and the evaluation framework that we're developing. So I have this question. Once we have a DMP deposited in one repository, I suppose that it will have gone through this process of evaluation before, depositing this frame in the repository. So this is going to reflect just an instance of, that, in the specific moment, DMP, includes this kind of information, or we're going to dynamically, upload this information, once we're going to put, to update something like that.
We keep different versions of the same DMP, as Zenodo does, for example. So it's, we will provide status to the DMPs, if I'm not mistaken. And we're also, for sure, we are versioning the DMPs. All of the tools are doing that.
And that might include also a notification system, to inform, the repository manager or
that we haven't standardized this. Every tool can feel free to create features that can support this kind of communication, and there are, I think, all of them are doing it. If not, the majority of the DMP tools in the project are doing that. However, we are not dictating, we're not providing a standard for how this notification mechanism will look like. Everyone can, create their own.
Okay, thank you. And the second question regarding the work in the Tier 2 project, you mentioned before that the scope is for the specific part about DMPs is, to make DMPs reproducible. And so the question is, this includes also the information and the data sets included within the DMPs, or is about the DMP itself?
So one of the things that we can do today with the beta version, right, is to check the reproducibility at a very high level, not at the granular level, meaning we can show the components that have helped to create this study. So, for example, the data sets, the links, all these references, the qualified references between the DMP, the data sets produced, the services used, and all that. This we can do today, but we need to think more carefully how to go into a more granular level, and if that is something that we want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't see any other question. So is Ellie something else that you would like to share, or you know?
A big thank you to my colleagues also, because it's not only me.
Yeah.
It's a huge team behind, and it's more people than you see here. I focused only on the Horizon Europe and the reproducibility management people, but we have, you know, from the fair, for example, we have an incredible, let's say, consortium in both projects that we work with and collaborate to bring this to you. So thank you to all. And thank you to you. Hopefully everything about the survey was clarified today, and please don't hesitate to contact us, of course, if there is more. Yeah, and we look forward to your responses.
Okay, on my part, I would like to thank you also, Ellie, for the presentation and for the great work. And of course, the audience for your questions and for participating in the webinar. Yes, as I mentioned before, we're going to share the recording as well as the slides with you shortly. And of course, you are welcome, you know, to subscribe to our newsletter to get, you know, updates from what we are doing regarding the hackathons that I mentioned before, and you know, all the progress that we are, you know, we are having so far. With this, I would like to close and once again to thank you all for being here. Bye.
Thank you.
Please fill the feedback survey if you have time.
Thank you for this, Thalasia. Yes, and if you can share in the chat the feedback survey, we have created feedback survey.
Yes.
Okay, and we will include it also in the email. Okay, thank you once again all.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Bye.